I'm going to shy away from cooking up Mallory McMorrow hater memes for the day because while she has not endorsed Abdullah Syed, I don't want her to endorse Haley Stevens either. So I'm going to keep my talking to a minimum, despite the fact that this person quite literally lost her race and had to drop out of the race straight up because she came after the king and best not miss. Trump made FIFA remove the red card from the U.S. striker. Dude, I know. We're going to talk about all that. Okay. Trump's late night 4th of July speech. Mallory McMorrow quits Senate run. Sunday Fun Day reacts are back. Did Trump remove Balogun red card? Have we watched the AOC data center video about more for perfect union? No. The fan account. If she does not endorse Abdullah, instead choose to endorse Haley Stevens, it will prove exactly what her vague opinion on Israel has been the entire time. Mallory McMorrow fan, vote Abdul. Working to bring former McMorrow supporters on the team Abdul. Let's go. We must elect Abdul to the U.S. Senate and works hard. Dude, I guess there are like Warrenites out there who genuinely like they are progressive and they just like don't see Warren or McMorrow as like a progressive spoiler, basically. They just like truly liked her. Yes, Mallory McMorrow is out. I hope a lot of McMorrow heads break for Abdul. What is this? This edit? Okay, I'm not. This is hater stuff. We're not doing hater stuff. McMorrow not endorsing either Stevens or Abdullah Sayed, at least for now. Whoever wins his primary on August 4th will have my full support. That's pretty crazy from Mallory to just not come out with a bold statement and be like, yeah, fair is fair. I called Abdul a terrorist. That was wrong. I called Hasan Piker a terrorist. That was wrong. I was wrong about those things. You know what I mean? McMorrow's second choice voter poll. Who would your second choice be for McMorrow voters only? 55% break for Haley Stevens. Jesus Christ. Anyway, we'll get to that. It's a two-way race now. It's a two-way matchup, and we like it, especially because we like it a lot. And let me tell you why. Because from the start, I've always said if this was a two-way, if it was a one-to-one, it was like pro-Israel versus Israel critical, it would have been easy buckets for Abdul. Okay? But this is still fine. This is still good, especially because Abdul obviously gained a lot of momentum on his own, got to the first place slot, and Mallory McMorrow's campaign cratered. Let me blast off first, and then we'll get into it, okay? Mallory McMorrow quitting. I can't be flexing too hard on this shit. I can't be flexing too hard because, like, obviously we don't want Mallory McMorrow to be like, these guys are all sexist. They, like, sexistly were upset that I called them terrorists. You know what I mean? That's just not how it works. Unfortunately, in this day and age, you just have to kind of eat it if someone calls you a terrorist. And then if they genuinely turn around and go, oh, you didn't appreciate me calling you a terrorist and connecting you to an anti-Semitic hate crime attempt, well, guess what? Then you're a misogynistic piece of shit. And then everyone on MS Now will sincerely advance that agenda. Like, they will genuinely be like, yeah, if you don't want to be called a terrorist as a Muslim man in the United States of America, well, if you have an issue with that, you're a fucking sexist piece of shit. You Bernie, bro. You Bernie, bro. That's literally what has happened. these past couple of weeks. It's very cool. It's very cool that we're doing that. You're already getting some flack that your fans are shitting on her while you're begging to get an endorsement. It's already happening, sir. Yeah, I think people should be excited that I'm offering charity and grace and understanding to a person who literally lit her own campaign on fire by unironically engaging in rank Islamophobia. You know? I just don't think she's going to endorse Abdul, but it is what it is. Dude, you're a surrogate. Please be smarter. I'm not a surrogate. I'm an independent content creator. I'm not a surrogate. I'm an independent content creator. I have my own opinions. I have my own mentality. Okay? I have my own mindset. Not affiliated with the Democratic Socialists of America. Not affiliated with the Abdul campaign. Just a random guy. Okay? I don't know why you guys think I'm a surrogate. I'm not the father. I'm the father that stepped up. All right, we got the coveted UMitch voter endorsement, which is cool. Beef ended with UMitch voter. Okay, election Twitter is back on. I no longer have smoke for the autists, for the election Well, some of them I do have smoke for, because some of them, some of the election Twitter, you know who I'm talking about, especially the ones in Europe. Some of them are such weirdos. I don't understand. But UMitch voter is back on our good side, folks. Officially, it's official. We're burying the hatchet. We're burying the hatchet with UMitch voter. Okay? We love UMitch voter. UMitch voter is not from Michigan, so he can't even vote for Abdul El-Sayed, by the way, which I feel kind of fraudulent. Like, I feel kind of lied to about that when I found out that he's from New Jersey. At least he was doing work for Claire and Daria Liza's campaigns. He was door knocking for them, which I think is cool. But this actually votes in New Jersey. Okay? So yeah, UMitch non-voter, more like. It's crazy. He went to school in Michigan, though. It doesn't matter. You're not a voter in Michigan. Change your name to Rutgers voter, okay? What gives? You know what I mean? Like, change your name to Rutgers voter, UMitch voter. You are not in Michigan any longer. You're in New Jersey. Yeah, change it to Scarlet Knight voter or some shit. What gives? So let's be real. It's a devastating day for girl power. Well, there's some girl power, girl boss victories here, but some major girl boss defeats and losses. Obviously, let's get started with Mallory McMorrow. So Mallory McMorrow, who's like a toy designer, toy car designer, and also real car designer at some point, from California, moves to Michigan, decides she's going to run for Senate. And at first, you know, she gets the Warren nod, she gets the Warren endorsement, and things are looking fine for her, I guess. Obviously, Abdul El-Sayed is like the true progressive, the true Bernie-crat in this race, comes out with a Bernie endorsement, and then he's running against the establishment machine behemoth that is Haley Stevens. Haley Stevens is the AIPAC stooge in this race. Millions, tens of millions of dollars that AIPAC and all these other outside, corporate PACs, super PACs are dumping at the behest of Haley Stevens. Pretty much everyone that understands politics knows exactly what this race is shaping out to be. But I was a little worried, partially because the race was a sleepy one for some weird reason, despite its national significance. This is a purple state. It went to Trump, even though on the same ballot, a CIA agent, a cookie cutter neoliberal, was still capable of defeating Mike Rogers. That's how bad Mike Rogers is. He's running again. His name is going to come up. He's running again now, this time against whoever wins the Democratic primary on August 4th, which I hope is going to be Abdul Sayed, our boy. But yeah, somewhere a couple months ago, Abdul Sayed gives me a phone call. He says, Hasan, we've done a bunch of stuff together. You know, you've come to Dearborn. We've worked out together. You fundraised for me. I want you to stump with me. And I said, sure. I've never done that before, but it's probably not any different than, you know, doing a regular live stream, right? And boy, was I wrong. At that point, there's not a lot of attention on this race, but Abdul has the fundamentals, right? And I knew that if people started hearing about this guy, if they started hearing about what his policies were, what his background was, right? If they started seeing him more, they would love him. They would fall in love with this guy because he's a fantastic candidate, right? Rhodes Scholar, doctor, worked in public health, wrote a book about Medicare for All, ran on a pro Medicare for All gubernatorial run in 2018, right? So he's fantastic. He's got the solid fundamentals. He's a real fighter, right? And I knew that if the people of Michigan found out more about him, because the issue was his campaign and the race is not getting a lot of national attention. If people in Michigan found out more about him, they would love him. They would absolutely vote for him. Turns out that was the case. So when Abdul asked me to stump for him, I was like, sure, let's do it. Who gives a shit? And immediately I started getting phone calls. Adam Wren of Politico, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post. They're like, what are you doing? Can we get a comment? Can we get a comment? I'm like, what the f is going on? Turns out stumping for a candidate and going and doing a rally for a candidate is a lot different in the eyes of mainstream media than fundraising for a candidate, having a candidate on your broadcast, asking them questions, asking them about policy questions. Because mainstream media finds that to be very different. They started attacking me. They started attacking Abdul. They were like, why is Hasan Piker, this dangerous, rabid anti-Semitic terrorist, coming to Michigan? Why is Abdul doing this? Third Way, which is responsible for the Democratic Party's neoliberalism for the last 3 to 4 decades, was very aggressively coming after Abdul, and they thought the best possible way to do this is by connecting Abdul to someone like myself, not dissimilar to what the Andrew Cuomo campaign had done. Andrew Cuomo, if you recall, in the last couple of months, or the last couple of weeks, rather, leading up to his failed mayoral election, decided to tune up the Islamophobia and attack Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani also is Muslim, right? And part of the ways that they were trying to terror jacket Zohran Mamdani was by connecting him to me. Hasan said America deserved 9/11. You won't disavow him. You won't disavow him. You won't criticize him. You won't attack him. You've been on his broadcast. You love him. He's your best friend. It didn't work. Zohran won that race because most voters did not give a shit. Most voters are like, I don't care. He wants fast and free buses. I like that. That's a good idea. He wants a rent freeze. I want that. That's a good idea. But of course, these guys are trying it again, and they tried it again, and it not only failed, but it actually ended up backfiring so spectacularly. Okay? Now, this is important because Mallory McMorrow at the time was trying to find the Goldilocks zone. She was endorsed by Warren. She was trying to say that she's a pragmatic progressive, that Abdul Sayed is too pie in the sky. His ideas are maybe a little too radical. He's too Muslim. He's too invested in Medicare for all. You should vote for me instead. That's what people need. That's what the people of Michigan would vote for. And I think in that process, that triangulation caused her to lose fans on both sides. And her support from the progressive side, the Warrenites that actually do think Elizabeth Warren is like a far better candidate than Bernie Sanders. And there are still some people out there, right? Basically, the progressive wing, the true progressive wing, saw Mallory McMorrow's attacks against me and against Abdul al-Sayed and realized that she's not going to be the true, anti-Israel candidate, that she's not going to be the true progressive candidate in this race. This kind of centrist triangulation does not work anymore. Okay? It doesn't work. Matt Bernstein interview was a turning point. Brother, it's the Matt Bernstein interview I'm sure helped. But I think if you've been in this community long enough, you've seen literally the turning point. Her campaign cratered straight up after the attacks. And she made a bunch of bad mistakes in the process. That was another big moment. This interview was a big moment, certainly. I think Emma and Matt did a fantastic job of trying to identify what was her. We were being pretty nice to her until then. Dog, we are marginal in this. Okay, you're silly. Us being mean to someone, you think that changes anything? Are you crazy? Get over yourself. I can certainly get over myself. Even if I am a part of this story, you should be able to get over yourself as well. No. Here's how it starts. The turning point is when she decides to slander Abdul and come after myself and be like, oh, Hasan's a terrorist. Hasan is like Nick Fuentes. And then she says, maybe he's not like Nick Fuentes, whatever, right? So that's when the turning point begins. Right after that, because she went with the third way. She went to Jewish Insider, an AIPAC propaganda piece, right? She went to the Jewish Insider and she gave a sit-down exclusive interview to Jewish Insider. Okay? That was huge. That was a huge mistake. Okay? That was mistake number one, perhaps the most devastating mistake that she made. Then she did the cringe video where she was dancing at the convention in Michigan. And people were like, ugh, this is lame, whatever. Okay? That was mistake number two. Mistake number three was when she decided to call into question Abdul al-Sayed's medical credentials on whether or not he should be able to call himself a doctor. And that was really interesting because I've never seen such bad instincts from a campaign in my life. First, doing the failed attack and saying Abdul al-Sayed is like a terrorist because he's with another terrorist, a random Twitch streamer no one gives a shit about. You all of a sudden look wishy-washy. You're not going to get the pro-Israel crowd on your side because you've already said stuff that's somewhat critical of Israel. But then now you're losing the critical of Israel crowd as well because you're attacking a prominent critic of Israel all of a sudden, right? So that was a huge mistake. But then she doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on that mistake by then highlighting the salience of Dr. Abdul al-Sayed's medical credentials. It was the dumbest attack of all time. You could have called him short or something, or that he couldn't grow a full enough beard, and that would have been a better attack than coming after a guy who's a Rhodes Scholar and a public health professional in Detroit, saying, hey, I don't think you're credentialed enough. That doesn't have one but two different degrees. Two. He's doctor times two. And you brought that up for no reason. It blew my mind. It's like saying, Dr. Abdul al-Sayed, can he bench press 3 plates? Actually, let's take a look. It's yeah, he can. Why did you bring that up? Now everybody knows he can definitely do that. Maybe a lot of people didn't know he could do that beforehand, but now they do. You brought this up. So that was a huge, huge part of this as well. And then she did this interview with Matt Bernstein and Emma Vigeland. And in that interview, it was very clear that she was wishy-washy. But it was just a sequence of unbelievable mistakes, and she just could not hold it together. Right? This is why her campaign fell apart. Because Mallory McMorrow could have been an unassuming, cookie-cutter progressive in any other race, in any other time frame. But she chose to run against a far more progressive candidate when people are looking for change candidates. Okay? She chose the perhaps worst time for people who triangulate their messaging. Right now, people are looking for moral conviction. They're looking for real fighters. And you, unfortunately, tried to constantly triangulate your messaging to find this Goldilocks zone. And that comes across as insincere, because it is insincere. At least with Haley Stevens, you know where she stands. Whoever's given her money is her master. Whether it be Israel, whether it be Big Pharma, whether it be these corporate PACs, that's who she will serve. With Mallory McMorrow, she tried to play both sides. And she hammered support from both sides. This is important. This is I'm not saying this is as someone who is biased in the direction of Abdul al-Sayed. I promise you. Okay? I promise you, this is not coming from a place of bias for Abdul. This is straightforward analysis that I would conduct on this race, whether I was, in the tank for Abdul or not. That's it. Well, you are, but let's pretend this is objective law. No. Of course I am. I'm not hiding that. I'm not hiding that at all. But I also can remove myself from the equation and explain to you why this failed. Okay? Putting myself back into the story, it's easy for me to sit here and be like, come at the king, best not miss. Oh my God. Big dangerous moment for you, right? I could just make this all about myself. I'm not. I am talking about the way that this is perceived by normal people, because I know that most normal people don't know who the fuck I am. At most, maybe they know me as a guy who criticizes Israel. Okay? I know where I stand in the American political the American political arena. Her making this decision only shows exactly what kind of her deciding to do this, her deciding to attack someone like myself and Abdul, and then be like, oh, you guys are terrorists. You guys are far too comfortable with terrorism. You're anti-Semitic. That what's more important for the voters and what's more important for my analysis there is that this is her decision-making process. That she made such a spectacularly stupid decision, because if anything, the people who know who I am are going to look at that and go, oh, you're fake, you're phony. And most people don't know who I am, and they're going to go, why the fuck are you talking about this? Wait a minute, did you just call this guy anti-Semitic? Let me look into his positions. Oh, that's right, he's anti-Israel, and that's why you're doing that. That I've heard that many times over. I'm not supporting you. That's exactly what happened. Apparently, there's a New York Times article on this as well. McMorrow suspends campaign. Senate bid in Democrats' heated Michigan primary. Let's listen to it.
McMorrow suspends Senate bid in Democrats' heated Michigan primary. This article is by Reed J. Epstein and read by an automated voice. Mallory McMorrow, the Democratic Michigan state senator who tried to cut a middle path between moderate and left-wing rivals, suspended her campaign for the U.S. Senate on Sunday, amid poor polling numbers and fundraising that did not keep pace with her two main rivals. Today, I'm announcing that I am suspending my campaign for United States Senate, Ms. McMorrow said in a video posted on social media. She thanked her volunteers, donors, and staff for their support.
AI
Ms.
stealing my
McMorrow's
gerb.
departure leaves Michigan's Democratic Senate primary a two-way contest between Representative Haley Stevens, a moderate, and Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, a progressive former public health official. Ms. Stevens is backed by Senator Chuck Schumer of New York and pro-Israel groups, while Dr. El-Sayed has endorsements from Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez
no
of
Hasanabi
New
mention.
York.
What the fuck?
Ms. McMorrow did not make an endorsement in her announcement Sunday, but said
That's
she would
crazy.
support whoever wins the primary. Ms. McMorrow's argument to Michigan voters was that they did not have to choose between Ms. Stevens, a four-term congresswoman with deep ties to the party establishment, and Dr. El-Sayed, whose left-wing views have made some Democrats nervous about his ability to win a general election. He lost the 2018 Democratic primary for governor to Gretchen Whitmer, who subsequently won two general elections by wide margins. We are being presented right now with what I believe is a false binary choice between the status quo in Haley Stevens and a candidate who has never won a campaign before, Ms. McMorrow said in a CNN interview last month. Michigan Republicans are set to nominate former Representative Mike Rogers, who narrowly lost the state's Senate race in 2024. The Senate seat is being vacated by Senator Gary Peters, a Democrat who is not seeking a third term. The primary is August 4th. Dr. El-Sayed praised Ms. McMorrow in a statement after her announcement. Senator McMorrow showed what it looks like to fight back against a politics that rigs the system against too many of us, he said. While we have policy disagreements, I never questioned whether Senator McMorrow would fight for a better America for my daughters and hers. Ms. Stevens also commended Ms. McMorrow. Mallory McMorrow has been an important voice, both in this race and in the state Senate, for policies that benefit Michigan's children and families, and I look forward to working with her in the future to build a stronger Michigan for everyone, she said. Holding Michigan's Senate seat is critical to Democratic hopes of winning control of the...
Okay, I'll just read the rest of it, whatever. Holding Michigan's Senate seat is critical to Democratic hopes of winning control of the chamber in November's midterm elections. The party must retain the Senate battleground it holds now and flip at least 4 Republican-held seats to seize a majority. Long adept at cable news interviews and creating viral moments online, Ms. McMorrow began to bleed support in public polling after she condemned Dr. El-Sayed for campaigning in March with Hasan Piker, the left-wing streamer who has defended Hamas and called Israel an apartheid state. Remember, whenever the New York Times used to quote me back in the day, they would say, he has accused Israel of doing a genocide. Now they've moved on to, he has called Israel an apartheid state in air quotes. This is a New York Times style guide decision. I'm not the only one who calls Israel an apartheid state. Every single humanitarian rights organization also calls Israel an apartheid state. So does the United Nations. So does the ICJ. And so does the ICC. So I'm not alone in this. You're making it seem like I just came up with it on my own. Okay? Objectively true. Objectively true analysis. Objectively true assessment. Anyway, the move backfired quickly. Her remarks helped burnish Dr. El-Sayed's claim that he was the lone progressive candidate in the race and the one most willing to criticize American funding of the Israeli military. And she won little support from moderate voters, and millions of dollars of pro-Stephen advertising poured into the state from the American Israel Public Affairs Committee and other groups. 5 super PACs have spent a combined $32 million to back the Congresswoman, including 2 groups tied to AIPAC. Yeah. You moved up from podcaster to streamer. Yes. So, at least they didn't call me controversial, I guess. They just said the left-wing streamer, so that's good. We're moving up in the world. But yeah, this is literally not only just in the paper of record, but this is true. Like, there were numerous pollsters, including Mitchell, a right-wing pollster, that ironically pointed to this decision that they made. Obviously, it's not because I'm a super popular person. I need you guys to understand something. When I bring this up, I'm not saying, oh, she came after me and I'm so goddamn popular that everyone in Michigan loves me and they were mad at her. That's not the point. That's not what happened. That's not the truth. Okay? I need you to understand that. That's not the truth. Okay? Her doing this, just like the New York Times is correctly pointing to, destroyed her credibility in the progressive side. Okay? That's it. Her positioning herself, her investment in trying to win both sides, trying to find the perfect Goldilocks zone of progressive, but not so progressive that it's scary. Okay. That made her look wishy-washy, inconsistent, and a politician at a time when people are not looking for politicians, they're looking for fighters. One big difference between the latest progressive edge candidates and ones in the past is that they're getting decent margins with black and Latino voters. McMorrow flopped for the same reason Warren and Pete did. Your base can't be fully white in the modern Democratic Party. I cannot believe this. Zaid Jilani with a correct take. I mean, he loves Abdul. So he actually does have decent analysis on the Abdul stuff. Zaid Jilani, I can't wait for him to make like eight wrong takes about wokeness and culture warrior now after this one rare W. Zaid is pretty good. What do you mean? Yes, I don't mind Zaid's opinions. I just think that he is such a culture war obsessive. I hope he subtweets your ass. No, he doesn't. He also doesn't even reply to me usually when I will straight up reply to him. It's so funny because he is an anti-culture war warrior, right? He's always been that guy. And there's a couple of these guys that do not realize that they have become what they hate. Because they were low-key, somewhat on the correct side if their criticisms, just like mine, was that this hyper focus on hollowed out idpol is silly, stupid, voters don't like it. That's correct. But these guys are so obsessed with it that they think anything and everything is hearkening back to the culture wars. And their hyper focus on hating idpol has turned them into the same culture war obsessives that they previously used to criticize. Unsurprisingly, Dana Nessel, Michigan Attorney General, has endorsed Democrat Haley Stevens for U.S. Senate. She is another pro-Israel person. Obviously, she very famously and very controversially tried to prosecute student demonstrators, if you recall. So that's not surprising to me at all. So you're going to see the dominoes fall. You're going to see a lot of people. You're going to see a lot of people that are in positions of power actively go and actively push for Haley Stevens because they're just unbelievably pro-Israel. She's the one who also smeared Rashida Tlaib. Yes, she's the one who lied about Rashida Tlaib. Shannon Watts, our favorite, endorsed Haley Stevens as well. Not surprising to anyone, obviously. Has Big Gretch weighed in? I hope she doesn't, because that's going to be a tough nut to crack. What gives? It's really going to be a righteousness versus piss real election? Yes. Big Gretch is super unpopular right now because of the data centers? Yeah. So, here's the thing. If Mama Gretch wants to win a little bit more shine as a relatively progressive governor, she probably will stay out of this election, or better yet, endorse Abdul al-Sayed. I don't think she's going to do that. Okay? I don't think she's going to do that. So the best we can hope for is that she doesn't endorse Haley Stevens. I just don't think any of these people that are in positions of power that aren't true leftists, true left populists are going to do the right thing. I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised by McMorrow, by Big Gretch, but I certainly think that my expectation is that they'll rat and I'll be very pleasantly surprised if they don't rat. And I would be unbelievably surprised if they turn around and actually endorse Abdul al-Sayed. That's my assessment. That's where I'm at. I don't think the main reason Mallory dropped in the polls was her attacking you or Abdul. I think running as a diet progressive was never going to work, especially without Bernie or AOC endorsements. So why would anyone vote for her over Abdul? No, the pivot point did come from the attack because she was doing all right. She was never endorsed by AOC, and neither was Abdul, but she was doing all right in the polls. She was actually pretty close to Abdul. She was actually beating Abdul. Abdul was in third place. Abdul al-Sayed was in third place in a relatively close race between Haley Stevens usually being in first place or sometimes Mallory McMorrow being in first place. It was a three-way statistical tie at best for Abdul, but he was literally in third place in every single one of those polls. Okay? And then Haley Stevens and Mallory McMorrow came out and pushed this line. Okay. Haley Stevens came out, or Mallory McMorrow first came out and pushed this line that Abdul was, unserious, dangerous, chumming it up with a radical terrorist. And that was when her campaign started collapsing. You can literally see it. Anyway, yeah, we saw this. This is from April. Senate poll showing McMorrow voters' second choice is 55% Stevens, 25% to Syed. But again, and I think, yeah, McMorrow has been a force in Michigan and seemed to have real camaraderie with Abdul al-Sayed early on. We'll see if that extends to now. No, there was reporting that centrist Dems in D.C. were pressuring her to drop out and endorse Stevens. And I think she just dropped out, but did not endorse Stevens. That might change. But yeah, that poll is the let's say the pre-Hasanabi Hex poll. At what point does the AIPAC machine move on from Stevens to focus on in the general? Is there really that much belief in Stevens? Right now, the AIPAC machine is not trying to get Stevens elected because the AIPAC machine doesn't care. The AIPAC doesn't care if Haley Stevens is the candidate or if it's Mike Rogers. They just want the pro-Israel person to win. So what they're doing right now is putting a quote-unquote progressive spin or a Democrat spin on the attacks. That's why they don't mind wasting away $30 million on the race for Haley Stevens. They just don't want Abdul to win the primary. But if Abdul wins the primary, then all of that money that they spent is not actually going to be a waste at all. One might think, oh, well, from AIPAC's position, they just backed the wrong horse, like Haley Stevens lost. That's not a waste at all from their perspective because they're agnostic to party affiliation. As a matter of fact, most of the major donors on AIPAC's side are actually right-wingers. They're like Trump voters. They're super right-wing, right? But they are right-wing, but they only care about one issue. They care about Israel. So the negative attack ads that they're positioning right now can be utilized by Mike Rogers in the general. And Mike Rogers can say, see, even Democrats didn't trust you. You should vote for me instead. It's not going to work because obviously people are unbelievably polarized and they hate Donald Trump. They want to punish Donald Trump. They want to hold Trump accountable. They know that the way to do that is by a Senate majority, which is why we're predicting a blue wave year. And it would have been a blue puddle if it wasn't for these progressive candidates. I'm telling you that right now. I was very worried in the beginning of these primaries that this was going to be a blue puddle. I think it's going to be a blue wave because of the progressive candidates that have a tremendous amount of grassroots momentum and excitement behind them. Right? Big Gretch already said she won't endorse anyone in the Senate primaries, but that doesn't mean anything. That can change. Can you explain rat? Dude, what? Rat is just like trying to shank someone, okay? Trying to ruin someone's chances. How is that? Are you serious? Like you don't understand the simplest of all concepts? It's right there, man. Are you 12? Backstabbing. Okay? Trying to ruin someone's run. by coming out of left field, out of nowhere, and deciding to harm their chances. Elizabeth Warren staying in the race in 2020 when she knew she was going to lose her own state to Bernie Sanders in an effort to split the progressive lane was a rat. Okay, that's what it was. Mallory McMorrow dropping out to solidify her support, however much of her support she can, to back Haley Stevens would be a rat. Sometimes you guys can just Google things, okay? You don't have to ask me everything. I'm not your one-stop shop for Google. Yeah, Barack Obama calling all the centrist Dems in 2020 to solidify support as they saw Bernie Sanders rising through the primaries was a rat. They all dropped out piece by piece and endorsed Joe Biden.